Hey folks, and welcome to the Pipnotic Symposium for the 5th of August 2020. Today we're going to talk about currency strength and focus on two tools, the Pipnotic Currency Strength GFX and the Pipnotic Currency Strength Histogram. Okay, so using these two is a matter of using one to find the trend and two to find maturity levels for entries. Okay, so the right chart, the right side of my window here is showing me trend information, and the left side is showing me price information and maturity readings. Okay, so I have a macro currency strength setting or reading, medium term, and I have the short term here. And on this side here, this is going to be my entry time frame, and I look at this entry time frame in order to find my entry, and I use price action combined with the currency strength histogram. And so here we are currently on the Canadian dollar Swiss franc, and that is because we have a strong strong Swiss franc and a weak Canadian dollar. Okay, so I know I want to be selling this currency pair, and so I use the left side of my desktop to help me identify where to get in. So before I do anything, I need to find an area that we can look to sell at. Okay, so if you look here, we have, first of all, we want to identify the swings. So we have, I'm just going to do this very quickly. Okay, so this is what we have. This is a move down, this is a move up. And so the most recent move down, which is this one just here, this is showing us where we have the beginning of the sell zone. And the beginning of the sell zone is right there. And it's right there because this is the deepest retracement price went before it moved lower. Okay, so this is telling us that we have an increase in selling pressure from this price point. So our supply area would be right around here. Okay, so here we have supply just in here, and here we have the sell zone just in here where the yellow line is. Okay, so knowing that, I know I want to be selling the two, and I want to wait for the histogram to move up into positive territory, because this is showing us where we have the end of a bullish cycle for the shorter term. Okay, and you can see this very clearly where we have a cycle that ends. It moves from, we have a negative cycle, it moves to the positive cycle, then it ends, and then it's going to move probably to the negative cycle. And you can see that here in price, where we have the negative moves to the positive, and then we're probably going to move to a negative, and then a positive, and then a negative, and we're going to move typically in the direction of the dominant trend, which is down for this currency pair. So what I want to do here is I simply want to see what I should be trading. So I'm not choosing what currency pairs to trade. I'm using currency strength to tell me what to trade. So currency strength is telling us what to trade, and the supply and demand buy and sell zones, and combined with the histogram is telling us when and where to trade. Okay, and you can see it's a really powerful tool. So just looking for a release, we have a very nice release here. The high of that release is the beginning of the sell zone, because price had to come up to this level before it left. So there's a high likelihood that should price return to that level in the future, it'll continue moving lower. And we want to do that at the same time when we can see longer term that this currency pair should be moving lower. And this is just a really clear example of that. Let's have a look at what else we have. We have the euro, Singapore dollar. This is moving higher. Where's the euro, Singapore dollar here? This should be wriggling north. Okay, so here we have a very strong increase in price. We have a very strong push higher, so we want to be looking longer term to hold this position long, and so we want to look for places to buy. Okay, so we know we should be buying this pair, but we want to know where we should be buying it. And if you look here very closely, if you would have waited patiently, price actually managed to move into this negative territory at around this price point here, which lines up pretty nicely with this buy zone right here. So we had price rally, accumulate, price came down, we pulled back, we went up, we pulled back, we went up. Okay, but the lowest point since this release is just here. And this is where price came to at a point where we had a very negative reading in the currency strength histogram telling us that there's a likelihood that we have reached the end of a bear cycle on the 1 hour chart. Okay, and again, going back to what we talked about earlier, we have a really nice example of that here. It'll probably continue like that. It doesn't always look like that, and here it hasn't. As you can see we've actually only been positive, which is also telling us that we have a very strong uptrend for this currency pair. But sometimes you'll see this, and this is beautiful, especially when it lines up nicely with an entry. I didn't get this trade, but I just wanted to show this example because it's quite a beautiful example. Okay, let's have a look. There's a trade that I'm currently in, and that's this one here, the Canadian dollar Japanese yen, where we had a weak Canadian dollar, a stronger Japanese yen. This is not a beautiful situation, but we do have something that's setting up. But this is slightly a different entry where I identified this area here as a place to sell. I like this because we had price rally, tested, went up, and then cut through. Slingshot was pulled back, telling us where the beginning of the sell zone was, which is right here. I sold at the area of supply. And this is interesting because this is a divergence situation where we have current price going higher, we have currency strength going lower. When this happens, price normally moves quickly. We have another example of it here. Price is moving down very forcefully, but the strength of these two currencies wasn't supporting that, and price raced up very quickly. So this is just another example of how this can be used differently. Sometimes you're going to see price end its cycle at your entry. Sometimes you're going to see price do something like this, which is what we've seen on this price chart here, where we have currency strength divergence at supply, which is what we're seeing. But it's the most important thing to remember is that you want to be trading in line with the flows. You can either look at currency strength, or you can go to the weekly chart and say, where is price moving? Is it moving higher or lower? If you look here, it's moving lower. Okay, but also notice that actually price had a huge push higher, so maybe this downtrend is slowly coming to an end. We still haven't moved above these highs, so this could just be like a nice retracement and a continuation lower. But you want to be careful about making assumptions about what price may or may not do. It's really important to focus on what the flows are doing, and for these two currencies relative to one another, this is moving lower. And you can see that we're actually starting to swap, where we had a strong push lower here, and now the Canadian dollar is moving higher. The Canadian dollar crossed over here on the medium term, so maybe this pair is not going to continue moving lower forever, and we'll probably see that price will maybe have another run for the highs before it continues lower, or maybe it will continue. We'll have to wait and see. But you have to pay attention to these things, which can get a little bit confusing and overwhelming at first, but over time you'll get used to it and you'll be quite comfortable with it. Okay, well, I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to drag this on for the sake of having a long video, but I hope these examples help illustrate the use of currency strength, combining price chart with the histogram on the entry time frame, and combining those with the GFX on 3 different time frames, so that we have a long term, medium term, and a short term. And just to wrap up, it's going to show what the settings are for this. I'm looking at the 30 period look back, and I'm looking at weekly data. So this enable static period is set to true, and this is weekly data. The medium term is daily data, and the short term is going to be 4-hour data, like so. And this is just giving me a really beautiful overview over the direction of these 9 currencies relative to one another. Good. If you have any questions, please type them in the video below or in the Discord channel. And once again, thanks for watching.